Hey guys, it's Cameron, and in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys about all of the mistakes I made to become an Apple engineer. Now, if you don't know me, I'm Cameron. I'm a six-figure, 23-year-old ex-Apple engineer, working and based in London, actively in the industry, and this is with, first-class degree, certifications, published research, just kind of really everything like that. So I've kind of seen it all, and I've tried basically every single strategy out there to break into tech. So I thought I'd actually make a video on telling you what strategies actually worked and what basically I did as all of the mistakes so you can simply avoid them. Now, breaking into tech, it's quite a big task to do. A lot of people want to break into tech, but unfortunately there's lots of competition, there's lots of saturation. Every single year there's newly fresh computer science graduates and tens of thousands of them, and you're competing with all of them, plus also people from the previous year who also graduated that also still haven't been hired for tech yet as well. So I actually thought, and what kind of prompted me to make this video was I'm normally on LinkedIn and I'm just scrolling through, trying to help as many people as possible break into tech, giving them advice and guidance on what to do and that kind of stuff. And I see a lot of these posts where, they're talking about, the strategies that they're doing to ultimately break into tech and, what they are. It could be like a blog post, it could be a coding project, that kind of stuff. And it will typically say something like, I can't wait for companies to see this and hire me in 3 interviews or hire me on the spot and that kind of stuff. And as a kind of authority in tech now, based on kind of my background and kind of, the roles I've had at the companies that I've had, I can see what works and what doesn't pretty clearly. And unfortunately, these kind of things that I see on LinkedIn, they don't inspire confidence in terms of being hired by companies. So I thought I'd actually make a full-blown video on all of the mistakes I made, which in most cases is what I keep seeing on LinkedIn, to ultimately help you avoid them so you can only focus on the things that genuinely work to help break you into tech. So grab a coffee, sit down with me, and we can actually have this chat. Okay, so this actually this came from my background, right? So I'm 23 now, from the ages of 17 I started my tech career. Up until now, I've basically just been figuring out what works, right? And that was kind of my job, just to kind of figure out how to break into the industry that I possibly want. Now, I was doing a whole lot of mistakes along the way. It was never a smooth sail. And that's one of the best things, right? Because if it is a smooth sail, it most likely means you've had handouts, referrals, connections, Nepo babies, and that kind of stuff. Whereas if you keep failing along the way, you're making a lot of mistakes, you're learning and you're building out your own kind of system that you can then help other people do as well. So yeah, from 17 up until now, I've made a bunch of mistakes to break into tech, focused on so many things that took away from my time, wasted time, took away time from really kind of any other projects that I could have been doing, or any ways of increasing interviews or landing more offers. And it was a whole massive mess, essentially, right? It was a whole massive mess because there's lots of different parts of breaking into tech. You've got before interviews, during interviews, and after interviews. And there's so many individual mini steps in terms of in those. I'll give you an example. So in interviews, you could say the right answer, but if you say it in the wrong way, or if you say the right answer but in the wrong way, that can ultimately cost you an offer after the interview, right? And that's such a minor, small detail, right? But you can easily trip up on that, right? If you don't know how to say certain things in interviews or even what to say, especially when you don't know the correct answer and that kind of stuff. But imagine that, but for every single aspect of trying to break into tech, right? From clicking the apply button to negotiating offers, there's loads of steps in there, and every single step has the possibility of you making a mistake on, right? Just like what I did. So I guess one of the first things that I did, and this is kind of a story from when I was 17, but I was okay, let's actually build this amazing big project. Let's build this a massive project. It's going to be amazing. It's going to take me 6 months to do. It's going to cost me tens of hours of work, all of these things. But once it's done, I'm gonna present it to the companies, and they're gonna hire me on the spot or give me a few interviews, and then I'll get an offer from that. So that's exactly what I did. I spent about 6 months developing this massive project for my tech niche. I was doing a bunch of coding, I was using APIs, I was doing all sorts, right? Now, this went on for, 6 months roughly. Like, it was a very long time. I mapped out every single task to do. I was doing A levels, coming home, and then doing this project. And I finished the project. After 6 months, I finished the project. And I was like, right, great to bring it to the market, and let's actually see what companies think about it. I got zero interest from it. Zero interest, not even 1 star on GitHub. I got literally nothing. I probably got like 100 views on LinkedIn for the post that I made, and that was it. No interviews, no job offers, no recruiters, nothing. And then I kept on thinking to myself, well, maybe it's because the project isn't good enough. So then I spent an extra 2 months building in new features, implementing new processes, new ways of doing things, making it more efficient. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the fact that I wasn't established in the industry to create such a big project. I was thinking that I was some sort of like, guy at the top of the industry who, if I make a project, everyone's going to flock to it, and I've got that kind of established credibility. But in reality, I didn't have that. And that's something that was kind of like a harsh, brutal reality that ended up costing me about 8 months or close to a year on just one project alone. Now, that was because it was a big project and it showcased off some skill sets, sure, but it wasn't showcasing off as much as possible in a very concise, clear ways. Now, what I realized from this is you don't need to make big projects to break into tech. You need to make small mini projects that showcase off very particular skill sets that you have. And if you do this, it means that you have more projects, it's more organized and structured, it's clear, easy and concise for people looking to see how much you actually know and your confidence in that skill set based on the projects that you make. And ultimately, it just looks a whole lot better, right? Like for your portfolios, for your CV. And this is something that I genuinely wish that I knew sooner, so I didn't have to waste all of that time on like a massive project thinking, once I take this to the market, once I start presenting this in front of companies, I'm going to get all of the offers, and then falling short on all of that. Instead, if you focus on short projects, small projects, then you can ultimately get there much faster and actually attract the interest of companies as well. Now, that was one of the biggest hurdles, one of the biggest hurdles that I had. Another biggest hurdle was not applying to everything. When I was 17, 18, I had a bunch of limiting beliefs, feeling that I had to be 25, know everything under the sun about coding or cybersecurity and all of this stuff to ultimately apply for the roles that I actually wanted. Now, this was actually a fallacy and kind of like a limiting belief on my end, because you don't actually need to do that, right? People who work in tech, companies that hire for tech roles, they're not looking for someone who has everything, because if they were, they would hire no one, because nobody has everything. You can have a bunch of good traits, sure, but you'll never be 100%, and that's one of the best parts about life, right? You're always striving for perfection. There's no kind of end to it. And with that same kind of mindset, you start realizing and understanding that companies, they're not looking for the perfect candidate. They're looking for good candidates or great candidates. And if you are one of those, then you will be getting an offer. But you won't be getting an offer or even interviews if you're not applying. So make sure that you're applying to everything, right? And this is something that I used to not do, as I mentioned, like 17 to 18, I would see like 3 jobs, and I would apply to those 3 jobs out of like 30 that I would see, basically, because I felt unqualified for the other 27 jobs. So that's something that kind of held me back and probably costed me a lot of interviews, a lot of job offers, breaking into the industry even faster. God knows where I'd be to this day if I just kept on applying to basically everything, right? Even if I didn't strictly meet the requirements. Like, the requirements are kind of more of a guideline than specifically what you should have. And I'll give you a clear example. I'll give you an actual story and testimony from myself. So when I was 20, I was in second year of university studying computer science. I was in a lecture. It was digital forensics, and I was just, doing my lecture. I was on my laptop, just kind of browsing the internet. You know how it is in uni. And I stumbled across on LinkedIn jobs, an Apple internship for information security, which is basically what I work in. I work in cyber. So I thought, okay, well, let's actually have a look at the job description. So I had a look at the job description, I had a look at the requirements. The requirements were quite vague, like they weren't kind of set in stone or anything, but I didn't have all of them. I probably had like 3 to 4 out of 5 requirements for the Apple internship. Now, I could have sat there, right, with the same limiting beliefs and mindset that I had at the ages of 17 and 18 and thought, oh, I'm not going to be qualified for this. They're probably going to be looking for someone from Oxford or Cambridge. I wasn't in that. I was just in a normal London uni. I probably could develop my skill sets more, my technical skill sets, what happens if I don't get in, all of these things. I could have thought about that and then decided not to apply. But instead, I actually decided to apply. Took about 5 minutes, didn't really think much of it. 3 months went by after, didn't hear a single thing, thought, oh well. But then actually, about 4 months after, I actually got an email, regarding actually having an interview for that role that I applied for 2, 3, 4 months prior. Right, and I wouldn't have actually got that, and then also, of course, therefore the offers, if I didn't ever apply, right? And that's why it's so important to apply to everything. I'm very, I don't like using the word lucky because hope and luck is not a viable strategy. Proven guidance, support, strategies is. So I don't want to say lucky, but I guess I kind of got a bit lucky in terms of knowing that, I kind of dispelled those limiting beliefs from my mind at the point of me applying for Apple, because if I still had them, then I probably wouldn't have got in because I wouldn't have even applied in the first place. So always apply for the roles that you feel like you're not qualified for, even if you feel like you're not going to get an interview or an offer, right? Just take it step by step. You need to get the interviews first. Cool. Well, then you need to apply. So just really apply to everything that you want to do in the future, or anything that you feel like you have an interest or passion in and some level of skill set in. Doesn't have to be amazing. You don't need a really fancy degree or years of experience. Just apply anyway, right? Unless it's going to be senior roles or like upper mid-level, then you most likely have a chance of even getting some of the interviews. So keep on applying, right? And that's something that I genuinely wish that I knew sooner. And another one is also knowing your worth early on, right? When I started, I didn't feel like I had any worth, right? I felt like, well, I know a little bit about this, I know a little bit about that in tech. I didn't really feel like I had a valuable skill set that I can then contribute to a company, and then they provide value back to me with, pay, benefits, experience, opportunities, and things like that. But it's very important to know your worth early on, and you're going to get kind of more of a feel about this the closer you are to landing those tech job offers, because you'll know more about the job market, what they're paying for certain roles, what certain companies are paying for as well, and what you seem to value your skill set at as well, because you can kind of associate it to the other roles in the industry and that kind of stuff as well. So make sure to kind of do some due diligence and kind of try to figure out where your worth is. There's plenty of roles I've taken that I got simply underpaid for, and I don't want that to be the case for you. So this was one of the mistakes that I made to ultimately become, an Apple engineer. Not that I was underpaid at Apple or anything, but ones before that I potentially was, right? But yeah, just know your worth, right? Like evaluate your skill set, the experience if you have any, your confidence in your skill set as well, what makes you different from every other candidate out there, the role, the company, the industry and the job market in general. Is there like loads of layoffs at the moment? If there is, then maybe you would lower that value slightly. If there isn't, and it's kind of like a booming one where you have multiple different interviews with multiple different offers, then maybe you would increase your value, right? And it's kind of like a fluctuation. It's never going to be a fixed kind of range or price on your value that you can provide. But just simply kind of experiment, know your worth early on, because once you get to the negotiation stage, you need to showcase that, right? Like how much you value yourself, how much you feel like you're worth. And if you don't know that, then it's going to make it incredibly difficult to actually get paid what you're worth, right? If you don't know the number, you may just in the moment pick one out of thin air and say 30K, but then they was willing to pay you 75K, right? So try to just like look into your worth and kind of like the job markets and that kind of stuff to kind of assess that. Because I genuinely didn't do that until about 19, 20. So about 2 years after I started trying to break into tech. And that was something that kind of did cost me, money, essentially money, right? It costed me some money. So yeah, just kind of make sure that you do that as well. And yeah, but by the way, guys, if you need any help with this kind of stuff, right, like breaking into tech, passing interviews, getting the offers, just yeah, kind of really any of it, I'll put a link in the description, and you can actually book in a call with me, and we can discuss how I can help you further. But essentially, that's the mistakes that I made to ultimately become an Apple engineer at the ages of 20, 21, and be on, yeah, £100,000 and up. And I wanted to share this with you so you didn't actually have to make the same mistakes that I had to do, which ended up costing me years of my life on strategies and things that just simply did not work, and also costing me money on top of that as well. So yeah, guys, it's pretty much everything. So I'll see you in the next video.